Before you toss out that tangled bag of old earrings sitting in the back of your closet, stop for a second. One overlooked pair buried in a forgotten box could be worth thousands of dollars, and most people would never guess it just by looking at it. Jewelry like this rarely announces its value. It just sits quietly in a drawer, waiting for someone to finally turn it over and check. Here are 10 old earrings that collectors are quietly paying a fortune for, and there's a real chance you already own one without knowing it. Number 10, the Coro Duet Clips. I want to start here because this pair gets thrown into the junk drawer more than almost anything else on this list, and that is exactly why it deserves the top spot. Coro was one of the largest costume jewelry manufacturers in America, and between the 1930s and the 1950s, they patented a clever mechanism that let two small clips snap together into one larger brooch or double clip. Most people who own these have no idea the little clips were ever meant to separate and be worn individually on a collar or a hat. Here's what nobody tells you. Because the patent expired decades ago and the company itself closed its doors in 1979, every genuine duet mechanism that still clicks together smoothly today is a small mechanical survivor of a manufacturing process nobody bothers to replicate anymore. Plain Coro pieces are common, and they only bring a modest amount, which is perfectly fine for someone just starting a collection on a budget. But the enamel and rhinestone duets, especially the flower, bird, and bow designs from the late 1930s, regularly sell for $150 to $600, and rare figural examples in excellent condition have climbed well past that range at specialty auctions. Flip the piece over and look for the word Coro or the word Corocraft stamped directly into the metal, along with a small sliding clasp mechanism that lets the two halves lock together and separate. That mechanism is the very first detail serious dealers check, often before they even bother examining the stones themselves. Number 9, the Hobe filigree earrings. If your grandmother ever owned what she called good costume jewelry, meaning the kind she did not wear every single day, there is a real chance a pair of Hobe earrings was resting quietly in her jewelry box the whole time. William Hobe built his entire company on old world European craftsmanship, and he insisted on intricate, hand-cut filigree work long after cheaper competing companies had already switched over to cheaper stamped metal production. That stubborn insistence on quality is exactly what makes his surviving pieces stand out so clearly today. Serious collectors treat the elaborate filigree designs, especially anything set with colored glass stones meant to imitate emeralds or sapphires, almost like tiny pieces of engineering rather than simple costume jewelry. Ordinary Hobe pairs will typically bring you somewhere around $40 to $90, and I will not pretend otherwise just to make this sound more exciting than it is. But the detailed filigree sets, particularly ones that still include a matching brooch or necklace, have sold at auction for $300 to $900 depending on condition and design complexity. What you are looking for is the name Hobe stamped in flowing script on the back of the piece, along with delicate open metalwork that almost resembles fine lace. Hold it up to a bright light. If you can see clearly through the openwork pattern, that is the mark of genuine hand-finished filigree, and it is precisely the difference between forgettable costume jewelry and a piece actually worth researching further. Number 8, the Schiaparelli rhinestone earrings. This one has the strangest reputation on the entire list because the woman behind the name was never really in the jewelry business to begin with. Elsa Schiaparelli was a fashion designer, a genuine creative rival to Coco Chanel, and her jewelry line only existed originally to complete the dramatic looks she sent down the runway. Then something happened that the fashion houses of the time never fully expected. The jewelry itself became just as famous and just as collectible as the clothing it was designed to accompany. Schiaparelli's earrings used bold, unusual colored rhinestones, things like deep aurora borealis tones, shocking pink crystals, and unusual amber colors that almost nobody else in the industry was using at the time, because she genuinely wanted jewelry that behaved more like wearable art than a simple accessory. Here's what you need to check if you suspect you own a pair. Turn the earring over and look for a signature written in a distinctive flowing cursive script. And examine the stones closely for unusual coloring rarely seen in ordinary mass-produced costume jewelry of the same era. Common Schiaparelli pairs typically bring $100 to $250 on the resale market, but the elaborate bib style and figural pieces, or the ones that looked almost like miniature sculptures resting on the ear, have sold for $500 to $1,500 at specialty vintage jewelry auctions. Hold a genuine Schiaparelli piece next to an ordinary rhinestone earring from the same decade, and the sheer boldness of the color alone will usually tell you immediately which one is which. Number 7, the Moonglow Lucite earrings. Now we reach the entry that sounds almost too simple to matter because I'm telling you, once again, that old plastic earrings can quietly outsell things that look far more expensive sitting right next to them. Lucite was a lightweight plastic material developed in the 1930s, and by the 1950s, jewelry makers were pouring it into glowing, almost pearlescent moonglow, designs that seemed to shimmer softly from somewhere deep inside the material itself. Families wore these constantly because they were light, inexpensive, and genuinely pretty, and then discarded them just as casually once plastic jewelry eventually fell out of fashion in later decades. That casual discarding over the years is exactly why clean, well-preserved surviving pairs are worth real money today. On the collector market, Moonglow lucite earrings typically start around $20, average close to $85, and the rarer confetti-style and moonstone-style pieces with unusual color combinations can reach $250 or more depending on rarity. Color and clarity decide almost everything when it comes to this material. Soft blue and lavender moonglow tones tend to be considerably rarer than the far more common white and pink shades, and pieces containing tiny embedded glitter or confetti flecks are especially prized by serious collectors. Here's a simple test you can run tonight without leaving your house. Hold the earring up to a light source and slowly turn it in your hand. Genuine Moonglow lucite has a subtle, shifting inner glow that moves as you rotate it, while cheaper modern plastic imitations tend to look flat, dull, and lifeless by comparison. Number 6. The Miriam Haskell Baroque Pearl Earrings. This category still catches people off guard because so few realize how differently these pieces were actually made compared to ordinary costume jewelry of the same period. Miriam Haskell opened her New York studio in the 1920s, and her signature look used irregular Baroque-shaped faux pearls clustered tightly together in dense, almost floral arrangements that photographed beautifully on film and in person alike. Every single pearl and bead was individually hand-wired onto a brass filigree base, one at a time, by skilled workers trained specifically for that slow, painstaking process. That kind of dedicated hand labor simply is not something modern factories bother replicating anymore. Pick one up and look closely at the underside of the piece. You will see a small tangle of tiny wires holding dozens of individual pearls firmly in place, almost like a piece of miniature basketwork woven entirely by hand. A single Haskell earring in good condition might sell for $150 to $300 on its own. But complete matching sets with a necklace, bracelet, and earrings all sold together have brought $1,200 to $3,000 at auction in recent years. If your mother's earrings have a matching necklace tucked away somewhere else in the house, do not separate the pieces because together the full set is worth several times more than the earrings would bring alone. Check underneath the clip or post for a small oval signature plate reading Haskell before deciding anything is simply forgettable costume jewelry. Before we get into the top 5, here is something worth pausing on for a moment. A huge number of genuinely valuable earrings never look expensive at all, and that is precisely the point. They get dismissed as ordinary because nobody ever stopped to check the small details that actually determine real value. Things like the metal stamp hidden on the back, the way individual stones are set into their mountings, or a maker's tiny signature hidden underneath the clasp. Once you start checking those specific details, instead of judging a piece purely by how flashy or dated it looks, you start noticing things you would have walked right past for years without a second glance. Keep that idea in mind as we move through the rest of this list, because several of the remaining entries are the plainest looking pieces of all, and that is exactly why they get overlooked. Number 5. The unsigned Art Deco filigree drops. This is the entry hiding in the most jewelry boxes without anyone ever realizing it, and it is genuinely one of my favorites because it rewards patience over simple brand recognition. During the 1920s and 1930s, countless small workshops across America and Europe produced intricate white metal earrings featuring geometric cutouts, tiny seed pearls, and delicate millgrain edging, all executed in the sharp, symmetrical style that defined the entire Art Deco period. Almost none of these pieces were ever signed because at the time they were sold simply as affordable everyday jewelry, rather than as future collectibles worth preserving. That means millions of families today unknowingly own genuine Art Deco earrings with absolutely no name stamped anywhere to tell them so. Collectors identify these pieces through construction rather than through any signature. Look for hand-cut filigree featuring crisp, perfectly symmetrical geometric patterns, tiny screwback or leverback findings typical of the era, and old-cut stones with slightly uneven facets, rather than the flawless machine-cut stones used in modern jewelry production. Common unsigned pairs bring roughly $60 to $150, depending on condition, but detailed platinum-toned filigree pieces featuring genuine marcasite or old rose-cut stones have sold for $400 to $900 at dedicated antique jewelry auctions. Even the plainest, most unassuming unsigned deco pair usually holds more value than a random handful of newer costume jewelry, simply because of the sheer age and painstaking handwork involved in its original construction. Number 4. The Taxco Mexican Silver Earrings. For much of the last century, American tourists traveling through Mexico brought home heavy, hand-hammered silver earrings from the small town of Taxco, wore them a handful of times back home, and then quietly packed them away in a drawer and forgot about them entirely. That casual souvenir history is exactly why so many genuinely valuable pairs are still sitting forgotten in homes today. William Spratling essentially built the modern Taxco silver industry back in the 1930s, personally training local silversmiths and establishing a bold, sculptural sterling silver style built around clean, dramatic forms rather than delicate filigree work. Many of the original workshops and their specific individual silversmiths no longer exist at all, which means certain sign designs simply cannot ever be recreated in quite the same way again. Here are honest numbers pulled directly from working dealers in this space. Unsigned but genuinely well-made Taxco sterling earrings typically sell for $40 to $100 depending on weight and design. Earrings signed by early, well-documented silversmiths, especially anything directly connected to the original Spratling workshop, have sold for $300 to $1,000 or more at specialty auctions. Look for a sterling stamp, often reading 925 or simply Mexico, along with a small hallmark or initials identifying the individual silversmith who made the piece. If your parents or grandparents ever took a memorable trip south of the border decades ago, it is genuinely worth checking that old jewelry box tonight before it gets donated or thrown away. Number 3, the plain gold-filled Victorian earrings. This is the least glamorous entry on the entire list, and it might quietly be the most profitable one for whoever happens to be watching right now. I need you to set style completely aside for the next minute or two. Gold-filled jewelry from the Victorian era, roughly the 1880s through the very early 1900s, used a genuinely thick layer of real gold bonded firmly onto a base metal core, thick enough that a surprising number of these pieces still contain meaningful gold content well over a century later. These earrings do not need to be pretty, they do not even need to be a matching pair anymore, because a single surviving earring in rough, worn condition can still carry real value based on nothing more than its gold content and its documented age. Reputable dealers who specialize specifically in antique gold-filled jewelry typically pay a modest premium over simple scrap value, precisely because of the age and the visible craftsmanship, especially for pieces featuring hand-engraved detailing or small seed pearl accents. A plain pair might bring $50 to $150 as a recognized antique piece rather than melt value alone, while detailed morning style or seed pearl examples have sold for $200 to $500 at dedicated estate auctions. And look for the letters GF or phrases like gold-filled or warranted stamped somewhere along the post or on the back of the earring itself. Get more than one professional opinion before selling anything, because the real difference between simple scrap price and recognized antique price on these particular pieces can genuinely be significant. Number 2, the Edwardian rose-cut diamond earrings. Here is where a little bit of ordinary family carelessness becomes genuinely expensive, so pay close attention to this one. If you inherited old diamond earrings featuring delicate, lacy platinum or white gold settings, take a very close look at the stones themselves before assuming anything is wrong with them. If the diamonds look slightly flat across the top with a soft, gentle glowing quality rather than the sharp, aggressive fire of a modern brilliant cut, do not automatically assume the stones are low quality, because those are very likely rose-cut or old European-cut diamonds, painstakingly shaped by hand in a specific style that largely disappeared by the early 1930s. Because that particular cutting style is essentially extinct in modern production, surviving original antique pieces are treated very differently by serious buyers than a modern diamond of similar carat weight would be. Edwardian rose-cut diamond earrings can start around $500 for smaller, simpler examples, average well into the several thousands of dollars for detailed platinum filigree designs, and the finest signed examples have been listed above $20,000 at major specialty auctions. Those upper figures are certainly not guaranteed for every single pair out there, but even modest, honest, unrestored examples routinely land solidly in the low thousands. For decades, well-meaning families took earrings exactly like these to ordinary jewelers who recut the old stones into modern, round, brilliant shapes to make them look more up-to-date, and every single one of those recuts permanently erased the antique value forever. If your pair somehow survived completely untouched, do not let anyone near it with a jeweler's saw before having it properly evaluated by someone who specializes specifically in antique and period jewelry, not the counter at a shopping mall. Number 1, the natural conch and abalone pearl earrings. And here is where this entire list finally comes together, because the most valuable earrings on this ranking are often the ones that look the least remarkable sitting quietly in a box. Almost every pearl-style earring sold over the last century used cultured pearls, meaning the pearl was deliberately started on purpose inside a farmed oyster by a trained technician. But certain naturally occurring pearls, particularly pink conch pearls and natural abalone pearls that formed entirely without any human interference whatsoever, are exceptionally rare, because the mollusks that produce them are simply not farmed for pearls at any real commercial scale. That single distinction changes absolutely everything about how these pieces are valued by serious buyers. Ordinary cultured pearl earrings might bring anywhere from $50 to a few $100s, depending on overall quality and craftsmanship. Genuine natural conch or abalone pearl earrings by Sharp Contrast can start in the low thousands of dollars and have sold well above $50,000 for truly exceptional matched pairs featuring strong flame. Like surface patterning across the pearl's surface. They are scarce enough today that they rarely show up in ordinary retail jewelry stores at all, surfacing instead through estate sales, specialty auction houses, or old forgotten family collections that nobody ever thought to properly research. Now, the honest warning here, because this genuinely matters more than anything else on this list, most old pearl-style earrings that families inherit turn out to be simple cultured or imitation pearls, and those pieces are genuinely not worth very much money at all. You cannot reliably tell natural from cultured or imitation just by looking closely, and neither can a general pawn shop behind the counter. The only truly reliable way to know for certain is a proper gemological evaluation from a laboratory, equipped to examine the pearl's internal structure under specialized equipment. That evaluation typically costs only a small fraction of what a genuine natural pearl pair could actually be worth. The plain little pink or gray earrings nobody in your family ever thought twice about might quietly be the single most valuable thing sitting in that box. And the only way anyone will ever truly know is by finally taking the time to check.